All right, stepping away from LTE for a minute, I want to take a look at the CatSniffer and my little adventures, I guess, in getting this thing flashed ultimately to the Sniffle firmware. And now I've had this CatSniffer, not this particular one, but I started with the version 2 thanks to Hackers Warehouse and their generosity during the DEF CON. And I brought that back and worked with it a little bit and ended up ultimately flashing the wrong firmware and got it into a state where I tried everything I could um, to recover that. Well, that's where the electronic cats helped out and got me kind of fixed me up with a version 3.1. And so that's where I'm at now. Now, I will say I've had some challenges getting into bootloader mode for some reason. On my particular one, I had the LED 4 blinking when it should not be blinking. There should be a waterfall like effect down towards LED 4 of the other three lights, and LED 4 should be off. That was not the case for me. So what I'm going to try and do is recreate how I went from the firmware that came with it, which is supposed to, best of my knowledge, run with the Python tool of CatSniffer, which unfortunately, also my understanding, it's not quite there yet as far as being finished and having the, I think it's the dissectors and things for Wireshark. So really for Linux, it seemed like the only thing that I could use right now was Sniffle for this Bluetooth sniffing. So this is, I'm recording this on with the latest DragonOS FocalX on a WarDragon box, and I'll try and minimize a whole bunch of terminal stuff, but I really, there's a lot to go through. So I'm going to get clone down the repository here. And while that's doing that, I'm going to reach over and I'm going to plug in the CatSniffer. So I have a USB-C cable going up. Probably one of the first things I want to do is get this RP2040 opened up. And if you look real close at the CatSniffer, you'll see reset 1. I'm going to double tap that. And that should open this up on Linux. And so I can see, yep, okay, good there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change into the CatSniffer firmware version 3 RP2040 serial pass through with boot, and I'm going to copy this, the .elf.uf2 to my, I mean, you could just as easily go in your file explorer and drag the file over. Probably making this a little more complicated than it needs to be, but I'm just going to use the command line here to copy that file into this here. Give it a second, it'll copy, it'll turn off and then come back on. You're going to probably likely have the top LED and the bottom LED, two blinking blue lights if you're starting with the factory firmware. At least that's how it is for me. Now that's loaded with that serial pass through with boot, so you should be able to, and I say should, you should be able to go on the CatSniffer, hold and just look real close at it because there's real small writing there, and you can see boot 1 and reset 1 are the buttons I want to focus on. So I'm going to hold boot 1 down, I'm going to hold reset 1 down, I'm going to release reset 1, and then release boot 1. And so what I'm seeing, which is not the case the first time, is I have that waterfall of blue LEDs from, looks like, goes from D3, D2, D1 in a downward motion, and the D4 light is off. If you've got that, then you should be in bootloader mode. And say you want to load up the Sniffle firmware. Then I've got my little command pasted up here to remind me. You could go into, let's see, we could go into version 3. What do we got? CC1352P7. Go into the Sniffle directory, and there's that sniffle.hex. Now if I do Python 3, come up a bunch of directories here. I'm just saying, hey, go up into the tools directory. I've got this CC2538BSLE, and we got the actual Python tool here. Let me see. I wonder if it helps if I make this a little bit bigger. And then we do -E-W-V sniffle.hex. Now that did run, and I apologize because for that to have run on DragonOS, I would have needed to do, which I've already did, sudo pip3 install Intel hex, and let me think, what was the other one? Should have shared that first. Let's see. Intel hex and Python magic. Those are the only two things that I did sudo pip3. I just installed it system wide. Those are the only two things that I added to DragonOS. And then that was pretty smooth. You should be able to, at that point then, unplug, plug back in the CatSniffer, and then I've got one blinking blue light on D3. Alright, and so at that point, if I go over to the CatSniffer page and click on Wiki, it's nice little hidden drop down pages. Here's a lot of good information here. And say we go supported software. Let's see, Sniffle. I'll click precompiled firmware. Actually scroll up a little bit right there, precompiled image. Takes us over to Sniffle version 1.6. Let's grab the source code. Which I think I already did earlier. Dragon downloads, we'll say unzip. Sniffle. I'll change into the Sniffle directory. We got a Python CLI tool. And so if I run, let's see, sniffreceiver.py. Now here's the thing. I'm going to have to, blur this out because there's going to be some Bluetooth stuff, but I'm just trying to remember. I don't think you even have to it might start on channel 37 by default, but let's see what we get here. Alright, so I'm getting in that Bluetooth information now, so just to show that I did get it loaded with Sniffle and it works. So that was pretty painless. Let me clear the screen here. However, for me, I ran into a couple problems which ended up, and I feel like I should share this too. I ended up needing to, or at least I thought I did, I wanted to restore the firmware without this J-Link because I thought I messed things up. I couldn't get into bootloader mode like I had explained. So I came down here, and I feel like it's worth it to mention this. It may or may not work during this video demonstration here, but I wanted to do the Openocd path here of restoring things. Well, it refers to Windows, and I want to do it in Linux, so here's how we go about that. Let's do a git clone gps github.com Raspberry Pi Openocd git. We'll do the branch RP 2040 just that's not really too important, but we'll just clone the most recent, change into Openocd, do bootstrap. That'll pull a couple things. So of course, to have done this, you would need to be connected to the internet anyway. So configure, disable W error, and let's do enable Pico probe. Throw a make at this. While that's doing that, I need to download this binary, this .uf2, which I've done before, but I'll go ahead and grab it again. We're going to load the RP2040 with this. So if you remember, go back, double tap, reset one, let it open up. You can of course just drag the file over from your downloads. I'm just making it more difficult here. Drag that over to, or I'm going to copy that over to Media Dragon 20. Now, do not forget, this is actually going to make it make the CatSniffer. Well, it's going to require a different method to put it into bootloader mode. So just put that in the back of your mind there, which I actually copied a note up here. So now we've got that loaded with this alternate binary. And let me think here. So a couple of things we're going to need to do. And the reason why I'm showing this is because the directions are actually slightly different than what this wiki says. So I need to make a couple changes here. So we're going to go into TCL target TICC132 or x2.cfg, and I'm going to add an adapter speed of 4,000. And while I'm in here, because I know it's already going to give me a warning, and you can look at the example that it gives here. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to show it so we can kind of follow along here. So let's see. I'm trying to think. So we have the RP2040 loaded. We've changed the speed. So don't forget, we're going to do a sudo. I actually forgot that last time and had me going crazy. We're going to go into TCL interface, CMSIS -C, transport, select JTAG -F, again TCL, target, TI. Now it's going to complain here in a second. TCL, let's see, so I have the CatSniffer plugged in, and so we can see it's complaining here, device found, and then expected this. Okay, so if you look down here a little bit more, it's going to tell you, hey, you're probably going to see this. Here's how to fix it. So we're going to copy this somewhere else, and we're going to do that in the, let's see, yep, we're going to do that here. That same file I opened a second ago. Can be lowercase is fine, seems like. So Control O, Enter X, I saved that. And let's do this again. So there we go. Now we can open up another window. Telnet localhost 4444. Now this, I will say, did not work for me the first time, and if it does this time, I will be quite surprised, but this is supposed to erase and set things to factory. I'm not sure why that's needed, but this is where it fails for me. Or well, who knows? Let's see. Yeah, so I don't know. I get that failed erasing sectors 0 to 87. I'm just making note of that. Um, However, I did end up getting it to work when I ran this on Linux, which is odd because I'm running it on Linux now again. So I don't know. I have to look into this a little bit more. I ultimately did get it to work, but quite frank, I don't even know that it was necessarily needed. That's the part that was confusing. But if you do find yourself having to run through here, you can at least see how to do it in Linux. Now, if you've gone this far, the only other thing I can think of is I actually started dorking around and erasing other sectors or something, and then I came back and it worked. But let's say you went this far and you're like, well, that didn't work. Um, how can we recover here? So this is all I did. I've unplugged, plugged back in the CatSniffer. Now remember, the way to get it to the way to get the RP2040 back open has now changed. So I'm going to hold down reset 1, hold down switch 1, release reset 1, release switch 1. Fingers crossed, give me a second. I'm going to open this back up. And so now I'm going to copy from my downloads. Oh, where's my CatSniffer here? I think. That's strange. Okay, so copy CatSniffer, firmware version 3, RP2040, serial pass through. And we'll do that .uf2 file into media, Dragon. Again, I could have just as easily copied it over there. So now I'm back into the normal operation of the RP2040 to get to bootloader mode. I unplug, plug back in. I'm going to go boot 1, reset 1, release reset 1, release boot 1, and there you go. I'm back to where I have that waterfall down. My LED 4 light is not blinking. So I should be able to, let me see which window we got here. I should be able to, again, go into my CatSniffer folder, firmware, version 3, CC1352, and we'll do sniffer again. The AirTag scanner and the AirTag spoofer should work too. Now that I think about it, I've just not tried it, and we'll just see. I'll just focus on Sniffle for now, but the point is being able to load this thing with alternate firmware here that runs in Linux. So we'll use our Python loading tool again, -w-v, and we'll do that sniffle.hex. And see, before I would get to where this was flashing, and then I would end up with an error every single time because it wasn't really in bootloader mode. And now for whatever reason, after I had finally got that Openocd done, and I don't know, I don't get it, but I hope that this was helpful. I know I showed quite a few different things there, but hopefully that you just end up being able to get into bootloader mode right off the bat. And then if you install those two pip tool or dependencies that I showed, you should be able to run the flashing tool with Linux and get your Sniffle and your AirTag firmware flashed. You should hopefully be able to recover. And if you have to, at least you can run Openocd in Linux, and then I don't know, but maybe you can get the flash sector all erased, which I did. And there you go. Once I get more with the CatSniffer and it integrated in with other um, solutions, I'll definitely come back. I think it's a pretty interesting tool that looks like it can do a lot. I'm just waiting for more things on the Linux side, basically. All right. Thank you.